no compromising. To some, it might just be one day, but to too many Americans, another day fighting for your health or how you'll pay your rent or how you'll feed your kids is a brutal and terrifying thing. What's one more day to an average American? It might be a day closer to the rent being due without having the money to pay it. It might be another day with insufficient unemployment benefits while bills pile up. It might be another day closer to possibly needing SNAP assistance or help from a food bank. One more day could mean constrained testing supplies don't pick up as many cases of COVID-19 so the carriers can isolate and protect others. One day today means for one of my staffers it was move-in day for his oldest daughter in college, but because she couldn't get her test result back quick enough, that experience, which is an exciting one for a young person, could not happen. These are not simple legislative days while we follow a negotiation strategy. They're days when Americans are struggling and suffering and we're not responding. Democrats are here. We're ready to compromise any day. In fact, we've already offered to meet the White House halfway on the size of the necessary relief effort. Our meet in the middle offer was rebuffed Friday, and it was rejected by the White House again yesterday. I have heard the majority leader today and on other days characterize the HEROES Act in his remarks as a Democratic wish list. So what I'd like to do is walk through the Democratic and Republican proposals side by side. At every step, I hope listeners will ask themselves, which of these agendas is oriented toward helping Americans through hard times? The Democratic proposal includes this: continuing expanded unemployment benefits for the duration of this crisis, cash assistance for struggling families to avoid eviction, to avoid foreclosure rather than just delaying bills and piling up debt, sufficient funding and flexibility for state and local governments so that we don't have a second wave of job loss when those governments are forced to cut their budgets, and so they don't have to cut vital programs and lay off first responders during a global health pandemic. Sufficient child care funding to both help working families but also allow child care providers to reopen so we can get back to work. Providing K-12 schools with the funding they need regardless of how they choose to reopen so that they can effectively educate students. Ensuring every American can have access to free treatment for coronavirus. Helping families keep food on the table by giving an increase in the SNAP benefit plus additional funding for nutrition programs. Continuing support for America's small businesses. Protection for the integrity of our elections during a period of uncertainty and fear. Those are the proposals that are contained in the HEROES Act. The Republican proposals combining both the HEALS Act, the Senate GOP proposal, and President Trump's executive orders include this: $1.75 billion to keep the FBI headquarters in D.C. so as to prevent potential hotel competition for the Trump International Hotel. Expanded corporate tax write-offs for business lunches, another top priority for the White House. Sharp cuts to unemployment benefits for workers who are suffering and out of work. Broad immunity for large corporations, even if they're not taking any actions to protect their workers. The effective elimination of state rules, including a rule in Virginia designed to facilitate the safe reopening of businesses in the economy. Undermining important protections and enforcement of longstanding civil rights and disability laws. Punishing public schools who choose to follow public health guidance but still want to provide their students with an education by reopening virtually. Pushing a tax credit program that would make donations to private school scholarships already deductible as charitable contributions, that would make those now preferred over any other charitable contribution, likely draining money away from other charities and hurting government funding as well. And finally, stopping payroll tax contributions into the Social Security Trust Fund, creating huge uncertainty for employers and employees, but also threatening to undermine the fiscal future of Social Security retirement benefits. These are elements of the Republican HEALS Act and President Trump's executive orders. And equally important is what is not in any of the Republican proposals, either that offered in the Senate or implemented by the president's executive orders. Food aid for hungry kids and families, nothing. Rental assistance, nothing. Mortgage assistance, nothing. Aid to the states and localities where Americans live and work, nothing. Funding to ensure the integrity of the upcoming elections, nothing. So I would ask anyone, which of these proposals seems more likely to help Americans who are experiencing hard times? If anyone's in doubt, and I don't think any are, about what kinds of hard times people are in, yesterday I shared some stories from Virginians who had shared them with me just as they're sharing them with all senators. Here are a few more of the constituents who've reached out to me. The owner of a small business with 18 employees in Northern Virginia wrote me, "My business is struggling, my employees are suffering, and we need further assistance." He went on to describe that this business was completely shut down in the crisis. Even now that they're open, they're operating at less than half their normal revenue for the foreseeable future. Their PPP and idle loan funds, they were glad to get them. Now they've run out, and they need Congress to act to prevent the business from shuttering and those 18 jobs from disappearing permanently. A woman from Henrico County, which is right outside Richmond, wrote in, quote, "As I watch the news, it gets harder and harder. We desperately need help. My son has COVID. My son had COVID. He is still struggling with health issues and he cannot work." A woman in Springfield here in Fairfax County has been waiting for information that she needs mailed to her so she can get access to unemployment benefits. But the delays in postal service have left her without the benefit she earned and is entitled to. She's a single mother of 5 and says, quote, "At this point, I'm struggling to feed my family." A woman from Dumfries in Prince William County, "I'm asking for help with the aid for the unemployed workers like myself that COVID has affected. We're a family of 4. I've lost my unemployment that we depended upon for groceries. My husband's salaries cover the bills, but I worked for groceries and extras. As of now, I may be able to get $190 a week from the state if they reevaluate my claim. Please, I'm asking for bipartisan support on an unemployment package that will help families like mine make it through this pandemic." And finally, a woman from Alexandria, just across the Potomac, "I'd like to request consideration for more emergency funding for daycare and preschool facilities. My 14-month-old little girl attends daycare 5 days per week. Her daycare is wonderful, but it's at the risk of closing in the very near future because it only has 1/3 of the minimum number of enrollees that it needs to be able to afford to stay open. I'm an essential worker in healthcare, especially in pediatric care. My husband is an essential DOD employee. If I have to stay home with my daughter, I can't take care of the children of others. And I'm honestly very worried about the prospects of eventually finding a new job as healthcare facilities are also suffering a large reduction in daily patients. I ask this from the bottom of my heart. Please provide funding for our daycare and our preschool facilities so that they can be here for us through and after the pandemic. So parents in Virginia will be able to continue to work now or return to work when it's safe to do so. Mr. President, it's not about politics. It's not about credit. It's about coming through for Americans when they need it. It is the case that yesterday Democratic leaders reached out again to the White House and repeated what they had offered last Friday. Let's meet in the middle. Let's meet halfway between the Republican proposals laid out in the HEALS Act and the president's executive orders and the Democratic proposal passed by a sizable majority in the House nearly 3 months ago. That's what Americans want. Negotiate, compromise, meet in the middle, find common ground, just as we did in the CARES Act. But the White House response was no dice. They refused the D proposal to meet halfway, said that's not going to happen. We need to get serious. Days continue to tick by as families face hard decisions. Democrats are here and we're ready. The White House must stop its no compromise position to meet the needs of American families. Let's buckle down, make a deal, and get this done. The American people can't afford to wait any longer. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.